India is on the cusp of becoming the fifth largest economy in the world and is slated to propel its growth to $5 trillion by 2026-2027. How quickly can we get there? What are the key proponents of the growth trajectory? How are various industries benefiting and contributing to further collective economic prosperity? And most importantly, how is it changing the dynamics of the nation through better per capita growth? Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of Maruti Suzuki Presents The Nation Wants to Grow, where we bring you industry experts, business doyens, and corporate India's movers and shakers from across various sectors who will help us comprehend India's giant economic leap. Joining us on the show is Mr. Shashank Srivastava. He is the Senior Executive Officer of Maruti Suzuki, Sales and Marketing. And he will help us understand the growth story of one of India's most iconic automobile brands. And before we deep dive into this conversation with Mr. Shashank Srivastava to understand the challenges, innovations and future plans of Maruti Suzuki India, let's take a look at the journey of the brand that has made reliable and affordable cars for the common man, thus contributing to India's growth journey in a big way.
Mera Sapna, Meri Maruti. The tagline of Maruti Suzuki made the middle-class Indian believe in the dream of owning a car. When no other foreign organization trusted India's potential in manufacturing cars, it was Osamu Suzuki who saw the future and fast-forwarded the Indian automotive industry's charge towards modernization. On the 2nd of October 1982, Osamu Suzuki-san and Mr. D.V. Kapoor signed the license and the joint venture that led to the partnership of Maruti Udyog Limited and Suzuki Motor Corporation, and in December 1983, right on schedule, the first Maruti Suzuki 800 was delivered. 40 years later, the brand still stands strong, contributing both to India's economy and driving our dreams and desires.
The company coming into its existence has its own story. At that time, nobody was willing to accept the Government of India's offer to become a partner in this company and subscribe 40% of the equity. Making cars with a government company was not a very exciting prospect for anybody, and we were really looking around all over the world to find somebody who would think differently. We found one man, only one man in the whole world, who was willing and convinced that India had a big future. A man who, over these 40 years, has exhibited that love for India and his commitment to the industry of this India and the development of this India, who agreed to join the Government of India in making this partnership become real and Maruti Suzuki becoming a joint venture, against the advice given to him by all his colleagues and all his advisors. A man who trusted his gut. That man, Mr. Osamu Suzuki. Without the courage which he displayed, without the confidence which he had in the future of this country, this joint venture would not have happened. And it shows how history changes, how the economy of people change because of a decision taken by one visionary. Osamu Suzuki-san, all of us in India will always remain grateful to you for what decision you took 40 years ago. Thank you very much.
Looking at the journey of Maruti Suzuki, let's go back to October 1983, when Mr. R.C. Bhargava inaugurated the production of Maruti 800 at the manufacturing plant in Gurugram with a vision to bring an auto revolution in the country. Later in 1993, the then Finance Minister of India, Sri Pranab Mukherjee, and Mr. R.C. Bhargava launched the Maruti Zen, which was an instant success. Very soon, the company manufactured its 1 millionth car in 1994. In 2003, the company set a benchmark by launching its IPO, after which in 2005, the company rolled out its 5th million vehicle, a WagonR, at the Gurugram plant. While Maruti Suzuki 800 was still the best-selling car for 20 years, soon its sibling, Alto, overtook the incredible popularity and topped the list in 2004. Later in 2015, Maruti Suzuki launched its premium category with Nexa, which was an idea ahead of time. A year later, the first made-in-India Baleno was exported to Japan, which became the landmark achievement for the country. From 1 million in 1994 to 20 million in 2018, the company became the first car maker to achieve this production milestone in such a short span of time. Maruti Suzuki's contribution in India's growth story has been gigantic, and one that will remain in the books of India's automotive history forever.
10 years from today, when we celebrate the 50th year of Maruti Suzuki's partnership, all of you are looking at a company which is in the top 3 in the world. That should be our goal.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. And today it gives me immense pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you back to what is going to be a brand new edition of The Nation Wants to Grow. I don't really need to encapsulate India's growth story in the course of a show, and I don't even think it's possible for me to do that. But at the same time, when we say that India must be a superpower at 100, or when we hear the Prime Minister give very clear direction from the Red Fort, like he did on the last Independence Day, that the only focus we must have as a country is to be a developed nation, it is necessary then to take 2 steps back and celebrate every aspect of that growth story. And it would not be possible without the contribution of the giants of India's private sector. And when you speak of India's private sector, you speak of joint ventures, you speak of collaborations, you speak of manufacturing, you speak of mobility. Without a doubt, anyone in our generation who would think about a company which would be part of the India growth story, part of what we call the perennial effort of The Nation Wants to Grow, it would be Maruti Suzuki. So ladies and gentlemen, today it brings, I have great joy in bringing into our studios Shashank Srivastava of Maruti Suzuki. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And Shashank, we've been trying to meet, and when we were lining up this conversation, I said you and I have to meet face to face. So thank you for coming to our studios and spending the time with us as well.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful to see you here today.
It's a pleasure.
Shashank, we are now on our way to becoming a $5 trillion economy. It may happen in 26, it may happen in 27, but nobody questions whether it will happen. Our infrastructure in the country has become a supreme focus of the government. And I think the strides we've taken in the last 6 or 7 years have been more than what people anticipated. We've gone through the COVID wave and we have shown our resilience as a country and as a people. So before I get into your sector, let me draw you in as a leading corporate on what your thoughts are on the India growth story, and then we'll talk about the role of Maruti Suzuki. Where are we placed? Where have we been placed? And how do you see the India growth story?
Well, first of all, I think the India growth story has been a great one, especially the last 10-15 years. It's been a great story, and we have actually climbed up the rankings as far as the economic strength is concerned, as far as the total economy volumes are concerned. And with this comes obviously a lot of volumes in all sectors of the economy. And for example, automobile is no different. In fact, with the economic growth, the per capita income is increasing. We have seen great infrastructure being developed. Although we may not be world class, but we are towards that. And I think going forward, I can only say there is a lot of optimism. In fact, I was reading a report very recently as far as the positive sentiment of consumer is concerned. India ranks the number 1 large economy in the world today.
So now Maruti Suzuki, it has become synonymous with affordable passenger cars. And that's how I look at it as well. And you are in your 40th year right now. So many, many congratulations.
Thank you.
1982, people said the market for cars is not there. So people said this is a risk but Maruti set up a manufacturing unit. And after the merger with Suzuki, today how much has the market changed? In these 40 years, were the risks of 1981-82, did they continue for 10 years, 20 years? When did the risk become an opportunity?
Yeah, so I think if you look at 1980s when when Maruti Suzuki started, Indian per capita income was less than $500. There was no industry which was producing world-class components. We had a huge section of population below poverty line. We had no infrastructure, whether the ports, I mean, we have a limited infrastructure, whether it was ports or roads. So, as far as car manufacturing was concerned, it was thought that car was only the domain of very rich people. Very rich people buy cars. And in fact, you'll be surprised, there were only two manufacturers of cars, Hindustan Motors and Premier Padmini, where the total production in the early 80s was about 40,000 to 45,000 cars annually. So when this project came up, the Maruti Suzuki project, we had all the negatives. In fact, as far as the economic system of India was concerned, it was largely tilted towards socialism, licensing. And therefore, it was not considered a great destination to invest. And to that extent, I must say, looking back, Suzuki made a big bet on coming and investing in India. And that bet proved to be, the chances of success were slim. But I think, looking back, a couple of things which really made Maruti Suzuki big was this amalgamation of some of these Japanese technology and work ethics into Indian and you know, adjusted to the Indian condition and culture. And also that this desire to grow was always there. And I think the desire to grow as a nation has always been there, but somehow suppressed, you know, because of maybe various different economic scenarios that we saw. And suddenly you saw that, you know, when we started developing local vendors for components, and I think in that sense, Maruti Suzuki is actually the earliest, if I am allowed to say, of that Make in India concept. We were actually the people who developed and localized the industry, which helped us get the volumes, which we later did. And of course, I would say around the mid-90s, when there was more liberalization and the consumerism also flourished, and we had very good economic growth, and suddenly you found the market which is very big. So from 40,000 a year, today, in this financial year, in the calendar year we just completed, 2022, the industry in passenger vehicles have sold 38 lakh vehicles.
So in a way, the first Maruti Suzuki, was the first Maruti Suzuki 800. DIA 6479 is the number.
Oh, yeah.
Which I am told.
Yeah.
That DIA 6479, which you have restored to glory. And I'm told it is in your company headquarters now?
Yes.
Is it in Haryana?
Yes, in Delhi head office.
So that first Maruti Suzuki car becomes the symbol of entrepreneurship in a way. It's more than a car. It becomes a symbol of the India story, doesn't it?
Yes.
So is the company emotionally attached to that?
Yeah, I can tell you. I can tell you. You know, this car was delivered to a gentleman, Sikh gentleman, Harpal Singh.
Yes.
He used to live
by Indira Gandhi at that time.
Yes, sir, by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The first car of Maruti 800 which Maruti Suzuki ever made was given to Harpal Singh. He was an Indian airline employee, and he was in the lower middle management. And at that time, when I told you that people always believed that cars can only be owned by real rich people, but the journey of motorization happened with that middle class Indian starting to buy cars.
That's wonderful.
Yes, and you know, the penetration of cars in India in those times was 1 per 1,000. Today it is 30, still small compared with rich countries, but from 1 in 1,000 to 30 per 1,000 is still a good jump.
Oh, yeah.
Now this car was bought by Harpal Singh Ji by selling off his premier Padmini car. So he sold that car, he bought this car because he said he wanted a fuel efficient, new technology, a lighter, more maneuverable vehicle, because he used to park his vehicle in front of his house in Green Park.
Oh.
Yeah. So we approached him a couple of times. I think it was in 2003-04, and we said, can you give us back this car? And he refused.
He refused it.
He said no. He says, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to use this car. And you know, I think he died sometime in 2010.
Okay.
He did not give the car. And later on, we persuaded the family that, can you give us back the car? They gracefully agreed, and they said, okay. So we got the car, we restored it. It's standing in our brand center every day in our head office. Every day we go through the brand center to the lift or the staircase.
You go through it.
We see that, and you know, it fills us with a lot of pride. As you said, it is not just the first car.
No.
It is about the beginning of an era of motorization in our country, and therefore we feel really proud about it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a great story.
And you said 40th year today. In the 40th year, we have already sold, Maruti Suzuki has sold 2.5 crore cars so far. 2.5 crore.
And how many Maruti 800s have you sold?
Maruti 800 would have been, I think, about 25 or 24 lakh type out of those. So 2.5 crore. And every time when we, at least when I walk through, I not only feel with pride, but I say, this is where it started, you know. And 2.5 crore and counting.
It's important to remember that, you know. Yes. I always say, Shashank, where you started, because with that car, I mean, that was a little hatchback. And that hatchback became a symbol of people's dreams. And seeing that hatchback, and seeing, as you said, someone who's a salaried, middle class, hardworking, tax-paying Indian buy a car and drive it around, enabled more people to even aspire to have a car.
Yes, absolutely.
So it became not just a Sarkari vehicle, but a symbol of pride and a symbol of personal achievement. And I think, you know, there's a real story.
Yeah,
there's a real story there.
Absolutely.
So if I were to ask you, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, see, we can all talk about numbers. You have had 50% of the market share in this country since then, and it fell short a little bit. I think it went to 43, 44%. Yes. Your company's goal is to get it back. but let me ask you this. Why is it important to get it back? Isn't 40% enough? Isn't 45% enough? Why 50%? Why the market share? Firstly, of course, within that question is another question. How have you even managed to keep that market share? In a country as diverse as India, I think if you were to say this to anyone in America, Western Europe, or even in East Asia, that we have almost 50% of the market share in what is going to be the most populous country in the world, they wouldn't believe it. And this is not with any socialist practices, this is not with government help, this is purely in a market-driven economy. How have you managed to do that? And why is that market share so important for you?
Yeah, so first of all, I must tell you, we are paranoid about performance, paranoid about volumes, paranoid about market share. But more importantly, we are paranoid about customer satisfaction. So unlike most other manufacturers, the first measure that we look every day is not how many bookings came or how many we sold, how much retail happened. It is what is our customer satisfaction score yesterday. So it is measured on a daily basis.
How do you measure that?
So there are, you know, we have a lot of consumers who buy our cars every day, about 6,000 every day.
Yeah.
And we have about 70,000 customers every day coming in our workshop every day. In fact, I think almost 70,000 or 75,000 per day. So we have a system, a very quick system of taking feedback based on which a score is generated. That score is flashed every day. So that is, I believe.
How accurate do you think that score is?
Yeah, it would be.
Is the company self-critical of itself, open to criticism?
Absolutely. I'm coming to that. Arnab, you asked me how we manage that market shares. So being paranoid is about volumes and market share and customer satisfaction. But I think it's finally an output. The input is where you need to be passionate about. And the input is tracking consumer requirement. And I think ever since Maruti Suzuki has started operations, we have been leaders in We have been the market leaders last 40 years. I would say that the number one reason for us being continuously leaders is that we are very customer focused. And we have, and that is very, it's easy to say, very difficult to do. So it's not about just taking feedback or taking, going to consumer clinics or, having your regional office team looking at what the consumers in local areas are preferring or is the preference changing. But it's a lot more, because it also, car buying is a large ticket item in India. The second biggest item you will buy in your lifetime after house.
After your home will be
Yes,
a car.
yes. So it's an involved purchase. You usually keep car from anywhere between 7 to 10 years. Average is 7.3 years. And some people keep it for more. But that means you have a chance to revisit consumer very often, whether it is for insurance, which you have to renew every year, servicing, where vehicles come for after-sale service, maintenance, or if there is some problem with the car, you have to adjust, if there is an accident or something, extended warranty. There are a whole lot of things, accessories. So we have to be in constant touch with customer. It's easier said than done. So we have made systems to take that feedback from customers on a constant basis. And we have to change with times. For example, technology has changed. People want more features, for example. They want, the design is becoming more important than, let's say, just fuel efficiency. So you have to change with the times. And one point which I must say, I have told you about something about the product itself or the type of product that you introduce. For example, we are going to introduce 2 new SUVs, because SUVs are becoming the flavor for consumers these days. They are moving towards that segment. We are introducing two new SUVs in the Auto Expo in another 10 days' time. We have introduced 2 SUVs, Brezza and the Grand Vitara, very recently. We have upgraded technology, features. More importantly, consumers in India want a very good after-sales network. And to that extent, we have made a massive, we have 3,500 outlets spread over about 2,800 cities. And the thing is, Arnab, we don't stop. You said why we are number one. One of the big things is we keep spreading, because the consumerism and the demand for motorization is spreading in the rural areas also. There is a great jump in the demand for rural.
Which is the remotest service center you have?
So remotest, you wouldn't believe, there is a place in Assam.
I'm from Assam, so I'm very interested.
So there is apparently, I haven't been there, but I have seen the videos our East Zone teams have said. There is an island it's a river island.
Majuli.
Majuli. So people have cars, they go around. So how do you service those vehicles? Because we take those, वो जो होते हैं ना जिसपे गाड़ी, we take those boats, the ferries, and we put our service vans. We take it on every Thursday or Wednesday. We go there. People who have any problem with the cars which they are using in the island, they come. So we are going to that extent. We have Andaman Nicobar is a good example, the farthest if you want. The highest is in Kargil, which we have a service center in Kargil. So we are spread all over. And more importantly, as the Indian economy has grown, the motorization in rural areas is also increasing. And you will be happy, out of the 650,000 villages that India has, Maruti Suzuki has been sold in at least 405,000 of those villages.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But we are not looking at that 405,000. We are looking at those balance 95,000 villages where we or 245,000 villages where we still have to go and sell. So it's just the journey is never ending. So you have to just keep flowing with the consumer, what they want, including the trends of the day.
But you've also got to be innovative. I think what the challenge for Maruti, both the opportunity is to remain synonymous with the mobility sector, with passenger cars, also with affordability. Now, it must be a tricky situation for Maruti today, that on the one hand, you are known for affordable passenger cars. On the other hand, you are competing with several cars, formats, styles, engines, EVs, hybrid technology. How do you maintain the balance between luxury and innovation and technology on one side, and your brand ethos of affordable passenger cars on the other? Must be a difficult balance to handle. Do you think you will be able to balance that out?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. because that's one issue we had been grappling for a very long time.
And safety also.
Yes, and so we have started the journey. We started, as you rightly said, the buying criteria was largely cost of acquisition, which is price, fuel efficiency, after sales, maintenance cost, peace of mind. So those were the criteria by which people bought cars. And in the stage at which our country was, that was the largest section of people. And therefore we could establish our brand, and our tagline was Maruti Suzuki, count on us, because you can we were known for reliability, quality and low cost.
Also finance.
Yes, and great value, value for money. Today, things are a little different, as you said. But you know, it's not as if everybody has shifted to the other side. Today, the buying criteria for many people is not price. It is not fuel efficiency. Those are factors anyway, but the major criteria also for some category of people is design. It is about features. It's about technology, as you said. So how do you tackle this situation? On one hand, you have a brand which says count on us, or way of life later, as we said, which has to address that large chunk. That chunk still remains large. We have to address that. But at the same time, we have to address this new set of aspirational buyers. People who are now buying beyond functionality. There are people who buy for functionality.
For features.
But for aspiration.
Absolutely.
So we started with a new brand, which is called the Nexa. The Nexa brand is giving consumers of that type who are preferring a different brand experience. Because I don't think you can transform a brand from value to suddenly to aspiration. So it's better to create a new brand. We did that. We have a Nexa brand, and you'll be happy to know Nexa brand actually, for example, in December sold about 51,000 vehicles, which is higher than, it was the number 2 brand in the country.
Wow.
So only in December, otherwise it's third, it's ranked third. With a 10% share as a brand. That gives the ethos of that brand is different. It is create, inspire. So
it's not the first car, it's the aspirational
It's
car.
It's the aspiration. And even in the Arena channel, which is our original channel where we are now seeing an upgradation both in terms of technology, and also more importantly, the buying process itself. People are using digitalization, and 25% of our sales now coming through our digital platform. So we have to innovate, as you said. One other thing which strikes me, Arnab, is there's in bigger cities, people start preferring, as per research, wanting to use the car but not buy it. They want to rent it. So there's something called a subscription.
Yes.
So subscription surveys. It's also fairly new in the world.
Have you offered?
We are doing a subscription since 2019, and you will be surprised, 2020, we will be surprised that we started it in the COVID times. And, people, our research showed that it is not just for car, it is people want to take on rent, furniture, television, and even I am told lehengas for marriages, which the lehengas earlier days where people used to debate कि यार ये नीला होना चाहिए, लाल होना चाहिए, इसमें सोने का वो होना चाहिए, वगैरह वगैरह. The entire family now you just take it on rent.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Sociologically, as a country, we are changing from ownership to experience.
Yes.
And I guess for someone like you, you've seen the whole gamut of change personally also through all your years at Maruti and from your years at business school to now.
Yes.
I'm sure what you are seeing right now is not a trend you could have anticipated 10 years back. So do you also keep in touch with changing consumer preferences and behavior? And where do you predict it going next? I'm always keen to get a sense, and I'm sure your automobile industry is at the cutting edge of trying to predict where the future could be, and the future is literally 5 years away. So where do you see it going? Passenger vehicles, EVs, hybrid? What's going to be the tectonic shift in your industry, which probably you are anticipating and are preparing for? If you can share it, because I'm sure there are people in similar roles in different companies in the automobile sector who are making their own sense of the future.
Sure.
Whatever you can share. What do you think the big
of course,
shift is going?
I can share. First of all, as I
And
mentioned,
how will you make sure that Maruti Suzuki is on top of that?
Yes. So as I mentioned, we keep in constant touch with consumers to get the feedback and also a sense of what they are thinking. So we have studies, not just market research where you have some questionnaire answers or clinics, etc. But also study through ethnography, as they call it. Where you study how they use the vehicles, their the parameters of consumer psychology, which may not always be related to automobile, may be related to some other retail experience they may be having. So constantly we make assessment of where the consumer is going to be. And obviously we make predictions. And you asked me about
like you mentioned the subscription model, which is one interesting.
So we have introduced, we're doing about 400-500 cars a month at the moment. Not large, but it's just started. But for example, it's not just about the consumer, but also the type of process he uses for buying a car. For example, today on the digital platform is the biggest platform where we get all our inquiries for cars, almost 35-36%. 25% of our retails happens through that digital platform, which is immense. We couldn't have gone there if we had not predicted. We started in 2016, before the COVID. After the COVID, of course, it accelerated. Subscription is one. We are looking at parking solutions. We are doing POC on parking solutions in large cities. So you can download a Maruti app and you can. We have such technology where, because consumers are preferring technology, being connected is one of the big things which is going to get even bigger now. So our cars now come with Suzuki Connect. We can have an online assessment of what the car is doing in real time. You can tell what the car. So for example, and you might ask, how does it help? For example, our brake pads, if they are changed every 20,000 kilometers, there are some consumers who are using the brakes too often. So you can go to them and say, listen, you are using your brakes too often. Those brake pads, therefore, you better get checked at 10,000. And it is preventive maintenance, so to say. You have a predictive maintenance also, where you can tell where things can go wrong in your car. So this is becoming increasingly a trend, connectivity. That's on the consumer requirement side. The consumer is getting younger, and we believe he's going to get younger even more, so people are going to buy larger number of cars. Third, we are predicting that the replacement car sector is going to go up dramatically. It is around 23-24% at the moment. We predict it would be 30-35. We predict media consumption to be largely digital going forward. Therefore, our investments in advertising or in brand building, imagery, etc., we are shifting a lot to television and digital rather than print. So these are, of course, all connected. In terms of product, and you mentioned drivetrains, there is a consensus in the industry going forward. Maybe EVs will become mainstream, but where there is no consensus is when it is going to happen, because there are many impediments to the growth of EVs. Last year, Indian market just had a 0.67% EVs.
Yes.
21,000 out of 30.7 lakhs that we sold. So going forward, but I believe it's a question of when rather than if.
Yeah, because I think the government is so committed. Mr. Gadkari is so committed to EVs, and they put in all these policies. Whether it be the FAME to battery swapping. Frankly, I think the way in which this government is pushing PLI schemes with an outlay of billions, 3.5 billion. Automotive Mission Plan 2026, scrappage policy. I think they are vested in the growth of the automobile sector, and the way they are pushing the EVs, I think you're right. It's not a question of whether but when. But it's clear to me that you also think that it's going to happen for a period of time. And so it appears to me that Maruti, with its, I'm told that you've taken some 800 acres and you're starting, you are investing some 20,000 or 18,000 crore rupees in a Haryana plant. So you're also preparing for the future.
Yeah. So
obviously that shows your commitment to the country as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Kharkhoda, where we recently invested.
That's right.
Its capacity is 1 million cars annually. So this is going to
One
be
of the largest in the world.
not one of the largest. It is the largest. When it produces 1 million, it will be.
And when will this be ready?
I think we're starting sometime in 25, 26.
So you're saying that by 2026, that facility of yours will be the largest car manufacturing facility anywhere in the world?
At a single location.
At a single location?
So 1 million.
No global company can compete with you on that? General Motors?
No, they have many plants. They may be producing more vehicles, but not at a single location.
At a single location?
Single location. Single factory producing 1 million cars.
That's huge.
Yeah. So the commitment is there. By the way, Arnab, since you mentioned about our commitment to this thing, we predict the Indian market to grow to about 6 million passenger vehicles by 2030. And our prediction is that the EV market at that time would be roughly in the range of about 17 to 20%. And therefore, the adoption of EV, and we were discussing EVs, the adoption of EVs will happen, I think at some point of time it will become really exponential.
Yeah, I guess it's like in the, for example, DTH to cable television, how you watch television, then DTH to connected TV. You still consume the product, but where you consume it and how it grows, you never know when that point of inflection happens, when the growth becomes faster than you anticipate.
So in this case of EV...
But India adopts technology very quickly. I've heard this joke that we were the last country where the Blackberries came and the first where they became redundant. So we may come into a technology late, but we move very fast, and Indians are very adept at using technology.
But at the current TCO, the total cost of ownership, where it is expected when the adoption of EVs will go up very fast. But I think the prediction out of the 6 million cars in 2030 is 1 million EVs. Which means cumulatively, if you take from today till that day, roughly about 44 million cars will be sold.
Still a big volume.
3.5 million will be EVs. So what do you do for the balanced vehicles? So what Maruti Suzuki is doing, because we have to adhere to the emission norms which is prescribed by the government, and also it's now mandated by COP26, where you say that you have to be carbon neutral by 2050 as a world. So we have technology like CNG, flex fuel, biogas, a hybrid and strong hybrid that you mentioned. Some vehicles, for example, the Grand Vitara gives 27 kilometers to the liter. It's such a large vehicle, large SUV, is giving 27 kilometers to the liter because it's a strong hybrid, and it gives a great performance as well, because people get that feeling of EV 40 to 60% of the time.
And that is where the future lies, because now with the highways being constructed everywhere, the length of travel as well as the speed of travel, the time of travel comes down. When the Mumbai-Pune Expressway first opened and people were told it's going to cut your time of travel by 2 hours, people couldn't believe it. But now you have the growth of expressways across the country.
Absolutely.
So this brings me to a very critical question. Brand loyalty, I understand. But I think we didn't speak about one aspect, which is that of safety. If you're driving a car at a permitted speed over 80 kilometers per hour, then you will be concerned about the safety features. I'm not taking brand names, but we've seen some big brands going up in dust in accidents. We've seen, of course, not so much in automobiles, but in two-wheelers, we've seen vehicles catching fire. People are concerned about the safety aspect of EVs. Are you doing enough to make sure that you are one of the safest brands in the passenger mobility sector?
Absolutely. And let me, since
what's been your experience there? Have you had any failures or any challenges?
Yeah, challenges are many. First of all, I must state here very clearly that safety is a very important, and if not the most important part when we are making and designing our cars. And of course, all our vehicles conform, and more than conform, all the regulations which are in place for safety. And more than that, because for example, if you see safety items like HUD, the heads-up display, the head-up display, or the 360 view camera, or the TPMS, the tire pressure monitoring system, ESC, ESP with hill hold, all these are not mandated by law, but we provide our vehicles, we provide them with these safety features. But I must make one point clear, which is that this safety is about, as they say in the industry, about 4 E's. One is education, which means in our country we have to have that culture of developing that safety culture in our country, without which, for example, you may make the best roads, best cars, but if people are driving on the wrong side.
Trust me, I have strong views on that.
Yeah.
You have fantastic roads, but I don't think we are becoming a country of better drivers.
So education.
Absolutely.
And to that extent, Maruti Suzuki has made 550 or more driving schools where we are training people how to read signages, how to drive, what is the proper way of driving.
Proper driving school.
Yeah. Proper driving school, simulators, etc. That's education. The second E is what you call engineering. And that's what people mostly discuss, which is about engineering both of roads as well as vehicle. Now, vehicle engineering is also very important, and that's what I was saying, how we have in our cars both active and passive safety features. Active features are those which prevent an accident happening, like TPMS, for example, or HUD, for example, or seat belt reminder, or speed reminder, and so on and so on. Those are active prevent accident. But what happens if accident takes place? These are the passive safety features, which is about seat belts, about airbag, which is about we have other safety features. Now in India, interestingly, last year data suggests, and out of about 130,000, 140,000 people who died, the number of people who died in cars were 13%. 65% were what we call vulnerable road user, VRUs. These are pedestrians, bicyclists, and two-wheelers. And of the people, the 13% people who died in cars, the number of people who died who were not wearing the seat belt, 87% of those people were not wearing seat belt. So that brings us to the third E, which is enforcement. You can have the best of equipment, but if you don't enforce,
I am a full believer in that.
So, for example,
the government's doing more there as well.
For example, Arnab, we have speed. We have a reminder that you are over speeding. So it's mandated by law at 120 and at I think it's 80. You have those beeps coming. You are over speeding. But if people don't stop, if there is no enforcement, to that extent, what Maruti Suzuki is also doing, we have with Delhi Traffic Police, we have installed speed cameras as part of our CSR for safety. And we are, if you go to Delhi, on many roads where people know that there are cameras, people are like disciplined.
But we sometimes, unfortunately, sort of enjoy breaking the law or not following the law, and I think that's where the dangerous aspect begins to come in. Well,
so education and enforcement also,
Of course, it is a big area. Let me conclude by asking you, Shashank, since we began with that, go back to your time in business school and now. You must have had aspirations beyond your professional career. Do you feel you as an individual and an individual playing a role in a large company are doing enough for India's growth story in the bigger picture? I'm sure that at some point we all want to contribute to the nation, and this channel is wedded to the principle of nation first.
Absolutely.
What do you feel about it? I mean, the India in which you grew up, studied, went to college, and now.
So I'll give you a very frank and a very honest answer. When I was in the business school, a lot of people wanted to go abroad because they thought there were opportunities in US, in UK, Canada, Australia, and I never went out, although I was always thinking, am I making a mistake? Because the stories I hear about the great prosperity, the great growth that those countries have, the great life that you can live there. So why not me? I can also do that. But you know what stopped me, and I'm being very straight and very frank, is that you know, I thought that the government has invested so much in education. Of my education, I went to some of the best colleges and thing. All I wouldn't have gone there if it was, you know, like US. If you have to pay a large sum of money, I would never have had that money. But I thought, let us try to contribute as much as we can for our country, and to my good luck, and of course I had a passion for cars. I went for automobiles. I had at that time the contribution of automobile in the country was 2.7%. This is very early 90s, 2.7%. And today when I see it's around 7.5%, going up to 10, $100 billion, going up to $160 billion in that $5 trillion plan. So actually I am very proud, because 49% of manufacturing is in automobile. That I believe is, in a small way, my contribution also.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Because all people who are contributing in the industry in their own respective areas, they are all contributing ultimately to the nation. Yeah. So I am very, I said 40,000 per year was the sale at that time. And when I see 38 lakh sale in 2022, you know, India is #1 manufacturer of two-wheelers in the world, #2 manufacturer of #1 also in tractors, #2 in buses, #3 in trucks, #4 in passenger vehicles, and very shortly we will be #3, overtaking Japan. Just wait for a couple of years. These are things which fill me with pride.
Yeah.
Because while we are 30 cars per 1,000 people, still a long way to go.
Yeah.
But what we have achieved is also something which we can celebrate.
Wow.
And we have to make sacrifices, both in terms of time, also in terms of giving up some of the other things. Like, for example, I feel, I give this example to my children, you have to give up some of the things if you have to focus on your passion.
Yeah.
So I never went to US, for example. I never, although that thought frankly came to me many times, because many of our friends did that. Today, many of those friends who were in US have come back.
Want to come.
And not want, they have come back because they feel, you know, this is the India growth story is what. And I keep telling them, and you know, this is one of the programs like Nation Wants to Grow. I keep them, listen, you have come back to a nation that wants to grow.
Absolutely, that's absolutely, and it all begins with that hatchback, which was sold to Mr. Harpal Singh in 1982. What a wonderful conversation this is, Shashank. I wish you all the very best. I wish your company Maruti Suzuki the very best.
Thank you very much.
And I have no doubt that we will be #1 in passenger cars as well within our professional careers.
God willing, yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It has been a total pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shashank.
Thanks.
Thanks.